Hello, everybody. Dr. Sally Adams-Jones back here again, and welcome back to the phenomenology of creativity. So we have already looked at, in previous episodes, the ways we imagined creativity to be. How did we suddenly come up with inspirations that we'd not previously had? How do we come up with new ideas and new aesthetic, new problem solving, and keep moving our culture into novelty? Is it a mystery? Can it be enhanced? Can it be accessed? Can we all begin to appreciate how critical at this time creativity must become? Instead of just iterating the old ways, how do we move our planetary culture into a more innovative and creative way of being, to problem solve and to create the kind of world we would like to have, instead of sitting back passively expecting others to do that for us and abdicating our responsibility to manifest this new world. It's up to us. Nobody is coming to save us. Nobody. I'd just like to point out, though, that presently in our political global situation, we are projecting our hopes to have a savior on some very toxic people. So that's a normal characteristic of humankind. We become very passive. We want somebody else to rescue us and to create this world that we want. And we see that particularly amongst young men at the moment who have found a couple of idols that in their mind represent healthy creativity. And that's something young men want. And that is beautiful. They want to access their own drive to build a new, better functional world. That is a very masculine, healthy motivation. What we will unfold over some of these episodes is how creativity itself is neutral. It's amoral, not immoral, amoral, it's neutral. And it depends whose hands it is in, whether they have moral development or not, how that creative process gets applied to our world. So as I've said before in previous episodes, creativity and ethics are inseparable. And I'm going to be raising that all the time, that everybody can access creativity to a certain extent. Some are way more talented than others, and talent is real. But it can also be weaponized against humanity when it's in the wrong hands. So creativity itself, right now, the fanboys of certain people, they're reifying creativity as a metrics for how they see healthy masculinity. And basically it's just engineering, but we'll look at that. It's just a left brain problem-solving function of the brain, which we then associate with virile masculinity. And we're going to look at the fact that creativity is not only masculine, that the feminine creativity has been devalued, and how that, what we call left-brained chauvinism, actually, the fact that the engineer is the coming messiah. Yes, we need problem solvers. but that's only half the picture, and we'll look at that. So just to say that I understand this new excitement about tech. People are not understanding that tech can be weaponized horrifically, and it can destroy all of life on the planet. So as we mature, we understand that creating the atom bomb, a lot of young people might have got excited. Yay, look at this. We've got this new invention, and aren't physicists and engineers amazing? They're the messiahs. So put that product that has been manufactured by scientists and creatives into the wrong hands, and life is over. So just to say, let's sit back a little bit. Let's not be fanboys and girls necessarily of people who can organize labor, create a lot of products. It's not always the answer. It depends on the integrity of the people in power. And sometimes those are two different things entirely. So we're going to unravel this. We've got lots here. We've already put out 5 episodes, and there are going to be, I don't know, maybe 50 more. I've been thinking over the holidays about what I'd like to do with this series, and my book, Integral Taoism, is going to be coming out this year, and that will explain everything. But I'm excited about sharing this with you because I think we're particularly lost right now as a culture. And understanding how yin and yang work together as a principle of the universe, including through our human body as we procreate, create, and co-create. That is the central guiding principle that very, very few people are aware of these days. So let's just recap what we've already done. We've looked a little bit, and I will go into a lot more depth, how philosophies of polarity have been called many things through history. So in China, thank you, China, this metaphor arose as the taijutsu, the symbol of yin and yang, the opposites, male and female. And that does not only mean genitalia or human sex, and we'll talk about that. That is such a tiny component when we are doing polarity work to enhance our experience of being alive. That's at the lower chakras. That's about survival. That is about biological creativity. So yes, we all love it. And nature has always made sure that sex feels good, just like food, just like sleep, just like movement, just like companionship, all the things that are good for our bodily survival and the survival of the species feel good to make sure we do it again. So that's inbuilt biofeedback in the body. So yin and yang at the genital level, the merger, the partnership, produce more of the human species through sexuality. Great. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about male and female as sexual reproductive bodies. In, for example, Hindu tantric thinking, we understand that is a kind of polarity in the body. Autonomic nervous system is parasympathetic, yin, rest and digest, and sympathetic nervous system, fight and flight, yang. So even 3,000 years ago in India, the yin and yang in China was perceived in India as the major ways the autonomic nervous system functions: parasympathetic, sympathetic. Rest and digest, which includes sleep, eating, resting, digestion, the ways our body heals and recovers. And the sympathetic nervous system is fight and flight. That's when we go out and perceive enemies and our adrenaline and cortisol are aroused, and it's an external focus, whereas parasympathetic is the internal. So we've discussed that. Also, the left and right sides of the brain were noticed in India, although they call that the Ida and Pingala. So even though they had no ability to do neuroimaging back then, they knew intuitively in China and in India, and also in the Middle East. We will have a look at the Semitic religions. We'll also look at the Wiccan religions. This is throughout culture that people began to intuit polarity, sometimes at the genital level, sometimes at the higher chakra levels, the creativity of the heart and the hands, building community, and also the polarity of the human brain, integrating the hemispheres. They didn't understand the neurology of it, but they understood that that was ecstatic and that was a union with the divine, the third eye. We looked at that last week. So this is a long provenance in the way we perceive polarity. So we'll go into that a little bit today. The 3 levels of creativity or union of opposites. We can look at that at reproduction, at the genitals. We can look at that at production or creativity in the middle chakras. If you understand Hindu language, your yoga training, and also aligning and absolutely merging polarities of the human and the divine in the brain. We also discussed already how Dr. Betty Edwards noticed L mode and right and R mode as she began to teach students how to be more creative. And that's what we're going to focus on this week. And then this century, because that was in the late 1900s, in the 2000s, Dr. Ian McGilchrist came along and had all the solid medical facts, the neuroscience of what the 2 hemispheres do. And he really corroborated what Dr. Betty Edwards had said, that the left brain is objectifying, it's a narrow focus, it's analytical, it's rational, and it cuts the world into parts. And it's problem solving because it's such a narrow focus and it's an external focus. It's a tool of the right brain, which is antecedent. It sees the whole picture, the right brain. It sees the gestalt, the whole big picture, and it directs the left brain into the world and tells it how to function, what its tasks are. It gives it a job, which is the masculine. The masculine loves to be in the world with the external focus, the fight and flight, problem solving. That is a form of creativity. That is our engineering tech bros at the moment. So we'll discuss that. It has an absolutely amazing function, but it cannot function without the big picture of the feminine, the right brain. So that is more visual, it's more aesthetic, it sees the whole picture, it feels and intuits and is connected to the source. It gives birth to the vision, and the left brain gets sent off to fulfill the task in the world. The problem is the left brain is now imagining it's superior. That's what we call left brain chauvinism, because it's associated with the masculine. It's been co-opted by patriarchy. and told that anything else has no value, that it's dismissed as irrelevant, and it's devalued, even in the education system now too, because the marketplace is reifying the left brain, because it is the part of the human that seeks power, seeks dominance, and resources in the external world. So we have been cut off from our right brain, and this is endangering our planet. So this is why I'm making this series, is if we don't understand this, we are going one way, glorifying the right brain, engineering without morality or big picture, which is totally evident. How do we save the planet if we're all aspiring to go to Mars? It's completely divorced from the ecology, the system, the feminine interconnectivity, systems thinking. And we'll go into what the feminine actually means. It's a lot bigger than genitals. It's just a small part, the genitalia. It's about qualities. It's about the right brain, and it's about whole picture, big picture thinking, which is systems thinking. Includes ecology, Gaia, understanding Gaia, how we are interdependent, not hyper independent, as the engineering community is saying that only men can provide what we need for the future, and that yes, they can solve problems. But without the mature masculine, the ability to recognize interdependence, the ability to recognize healthy constraints, the ability to recognize our absolute need to protect and nurture, which is the healthy masculine, we're doomed. So the unhealthy masculine is being reified right now, and we've seen that in our politics. We see that in the hero worship of the tech community that are going to take us towards our doom, while also providing some amazing creations, but without ethics. It's not a very feeling community. It's not a community connected to the whole. It's about making money and developing a lot of power. So it's a broken hyper reification of one side of the brain. And I want to just quote here Dr. Ian McGilchrist, who's the psychiatrist that we've known this for a long time, but he brought the actual neuroscience, and he's written 2 beautiful books on this, one of which is The Master and His Emissary. And the master is the right brain. The emissary is the left brain. This is what he has to say. It is vital that the 2 hemispheres work together. But in Western culture, there's evidence of a power struggle, with the left hemisphere becoming increasingly dominant. So that's the narrow focus, the engineering, the mathematical, the abstract, conceptual objectification of our world. The result is a dehumanized society where a rigid and bureaucratic mentality, obsessed with a structure and seeing everything mechanistically, holds sway at huge cost to human happiness and the world around us. So he doesn't call it yin and yang. He doesn't call it the masculine and the feminine. I bring that together. So that's my work in the world, is to notice that what Ian McGilchrist is talking about is the medical science of this. But my work is to show people that we've known that forever. It's shown up in different cultures. It's got different names. We've seen how imbalance leads to disaster, to abuse, power abuse of the one polarity over the other. and how if we think polarity is only operating at the genital level to create babies and have lovely marriages, then we're extremely limited. My work on integral Taoism is to show that the yin and yang are an operating polarity, a principle of the universe as a whole, and that humans are a fractal of that. And when we learn how to maximize that pair working together internally, that we become more creative. So that's my thesis. The book is coming out this year, and there'll be much more on that. But at the brain level, as opposed to the genital level, the brain level, there is the left and right brain. And usually, most of us are only metabolizing one half. Some of us are right-brained, some of us are left-brained. That generally maps onto gender, but not always. Absolutely not. Many women are left-brained, many men are right-brained, and that's what I want to look at, is how polarity cannot be conflated to sex or gender. It's way bigger than that. Sex evolved fairly recently in the history of the 14 billion years history of humanity. Sex is a new, fairly new invention of the biosphere for the transmission of DNA, for reproducing itself. So yes, it exists at that level. XX, XY, they come together, more babies are made. So there is a polarity at the biosphere. I'm talking about the level of polarity at the neurosphere culture, the brain, because that's how we maximize our creativity. So I know that lots of you are going to get confused when I talk about yin and yang. We're going to look at yin and yang as a set of opposing principles that exist in the two different hemispheres, yin and yang, right and left brain, which need to be integrated. An internal marriage, as opposed to the external marriage. We integrate our opposites to become whole at the level of our brain. So I know, I know that's a lot. And I would suggest, well, number one, my book's going to come out this year, Integral Taoism, and it will show you why we look at these different levels of creativity, or the biopsychosocial and political layers of polarity. But you can also, if you're interested in this, refer to my podcast that I did with Dr. Jen Pierre Rich. It's called radicalemergence.org. Conversations at the Edge of Transformation. You can find that on any platform. And if you go to episode 8, 9, and 10, you'll find a lot more on creativity, including the chakras, from which part of our bodies we create, and the object-subject split, which is the brain filters we bring to the world, whether we're left-brained or right-brained dominant. The left brain being more objective, the right brain more subjective, and how we need to heal that object-subject split. In other words, integrate our brain, because right now there's just perspectives, and they're fighting all the time for dominance, not only inside us, but in the world. Men are saying, oh my goodness, these heroes of ours, they're going to lead us to Mars because they make a lot of objects. They're going to problem solve. Yes, they are, but there's questionable wielding of creative power if it's not connected to the feminine, which is concerned with community, life itself, ecology, caring, and nurturing of the life force. When these get divorced inside us and in community, the divorce is not fun. We need to come back together and operate as partners in co-creating our new world, not only internally at the brain level, but culturally. Men and women need to come together again and stop creating this false hierarchy. I see it all over social media, and the young men in particular who are struggling to find heroes which they can emulate right now, which is a very healthy masculine need for young men, looking for role models. We've got very few healthy role models for them, and they're being attracted to some people who don't have the level of integrity that we need with left-brained problem solving and creativity. So more in the next episode on when somebody is very creative. If it's a woman, they get demonized as being masculine. And when a man is very creative in the aesthetic side, not the engineering side, because we're going to look at math and art as the opposites in the brain. So creativity resides in both sides of the brain. Engineering, aesthetics, we'll look at that. But when a man is very creative in the aesthetic field, he's demonized as being feminine. I teach, have taught in many different creative fields, including architecture, including visual arts, including creative writing, including theater, including clothing design, set design. My particular brain is both left and right. I can do the math and I can do the aesthetics. So I'm an engineer and an architect. If a man specializes in the right brain, I've even heard people say, "You're so gay." It's horrific, the pressure that men have and the stigmatization of their aesthetic creativity and the stigmatization of women when they have a more mathematical engineering creativity. I have worked in the field of the building trade, for example, as a designer, and walked around in hard hat and boots, and I get challenged by men in the building industry who have reified their left brain, their ability to problem solve and manufacture the world. They think it's their terrain, and they will devalue someone of another gender who dares to operate in their left brain. So as a teacher, I was really noticing this. This is weird. The male students are stigmatized for their feminine aesthetic, and the female students are stigmatized for their more masculine problem solving. So we've got to get over this. Creativity is both, and it's awakening both sides of the brain. It's got nothing to do with the body that you show up in. Okay, so left and right brain, yin and yang. That taijutsu is actually a metaphor for the human head as well as the principles of the universe. Yin and yang, the Tao symbol. And in order to become whole, we need to get over a lot of prejudices. We need to get over devaluing the other polarity. That's toxic abuse. And we need to get over associating it only with the genital procreativity of male and female. We're going to look at this as a dance of opposites at the creative level, not the procreative, and how that is actually manifested through integrating our brain. So this is all brand new. You're not going to find this anywhere else. I do have people plagiarizing my work. I have very unscrupulous, totally immoral people listening to my podcasts and then trying to sell it on their own platform because they're cut off from their own right brain, which is connected to what we called earlier the Akashic records or inspiration or our source. So then they have to go steal other people's work because they're not creative, they're iterative. And this is the problem, is with the left brain, it doesn't always originate. It is interested in power and domination, and it'll do whatever it needs to do when it's cut off from ethics. So this is the problem. It's the problem we're facing in the world. People are platforming ideas when they're stolen and claiming credit, not giving credit where it's due. And so we really need to understand that creativity is connecting with our source, allowing that to come through as inspiration, through the right brain, the whole picture, the oneness, and then giving that task to the left brain to go problem solve with parts, because it's very detail orientated. But when that's cut off from source or heart-centered ethic, it becomes extremely dangerous. And Ian McGilchrist doesn't call it masculine and feminine. He calls it the left and right brain, but we understand what he means. He is speaking the language of his field, which is medical, and I'm speaking both science and metaphor, because we have a long tradition of understanding yin and yang with different names across different cultures. So if you're interested in heightening your creativity, becoming whole, which is transformative, so you can find that on the podcast. I've got 26 episodes there on how we transform, 3 of which are on transforming through creativity. You can find that at radicalemergence.org or on any platform. There's more there, but I'm going to be sharing with you at least 50 more of these episodes. So I hope you have had a wonderful New Year's and winter solstice and allowed yourselves to rest, because polarity work includes taking a break. We'll look at that, how left-brained people get burnt out. They stop taking care of themselves. It's not sustainable. So taking a break over the winter solstice, allowing yourself to stop being so analytical, rational, goal-oriented, stepping back, because you can only find the big picture when you're in rest and digest. The autonomic nervous system gives you the ability to select which hemisphere you want to function in. When you're in fight and flight, you tend to just be in the frontal cortex and looking with external focus and problem solving, and not being in touch with the imagination or intuition at all. So this is very layered, embodied wisdom. You won't find this anywhere else. I'm bringing together wisdom from China, from India, from Greece. We'll look at that, dichotomous thinking. We will look at the history of thinking in the West and how that has split the brain. It's devalued the feminine, taken us into patriarchy, right into hypermodernism, which is destroying the planet. So I'm grateful for people like Dr. McGilchrist, who, because he has the white coat, has the authority to actually give us the biology of this, because people knew it before, but now it's verified. There is no argument anymore that this is factual. So I will see you next time in episode 7, and I wish you a wonderful week. and look forward to connecting again. Bye bye.